Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Welcome back to another edition of Impactful Teamwork. My name's Julia Felton, and I'm going to be your host and guide for the next 20 minutes as we delve into everything teamwork and how to make teams more effective and productive and profitable within the workplace. And if you're new to listening to the show, welcome. Super excited to have you. I know a number of people have joined us recently, so really delighted that you're joining us. And these episodes come out every Tuesday, so please do sign up to get notifications for when a new episode is released. In last week's episode, I was talking about the law of the bad apple and how an amazing attitude can inspire and motivate a team and take them beyond their potential, but also how a very poor attitude can have completely the opposite effect. It's what John Maxwell calls the law of the bad apple, where one person, through their energy and their attitude and their demeanor, brings down the whole team in the same way that a rotten apple in a bowl of fruit actually ends up infecting all of the apples. And I've been reflecting a lot on this week, and I came across some terminology to describe this, which I really wanted to share with you today. Also inspired by John Maxwell, who I've studied a lot, and I think the guy writes some amazing books, so many books he's written about teamwork and leadership and effective communication. And he's always a go-to source of information for me in my business. And what he talks about is the law of the catalyst, where winning teams have players who make things happen. And this really got me reflecting about my friend Dani, who I spoke about in last week's episode, the founder of Eat, Sleep, Ride, and how she is just such a cat within that organization for getting things done. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I'd really encourage you to do that. And you'll hear how Dani has been such an inspiration. She's taken a piece of pretty much derelict land and turned it into a riding establishment where they really support, in the main, quite a lot of disadvantaged youth, women. And it's just a great safe haven to go, to be with the horses and to learn more about yourself, improve your mental health. And Dani's just created an inspiring environment there. So I thought Dani is absolutely an example of this catalyst from the law of a catalyst, because most teams don't naturally get better on their own. And in fact, I've seen many teams when they're just left to improve by themselves, nothing really happens. In fact, the opposite happens. Sometimes they tend to dwindle and die, not literally die, but metaphorically die in terms of the level of enthusiasm, engagement within the team kind of diminishes over time. They lose focus, they get out of rhythm, and that decreases the energy. And then often we see a breakdown in unity within the team and a loss of momentum. And of course, when that happens, then we tend to lose key players. And I'm sure that if you're like me, you've seen that in business where you get to a point where that actually happens and you lose a lot of your key members of the team. And as a leader and a manager of that team, that can be really daunting and quite upsetting. So when I was in the corporate world and I was leading my team through that transition from Arthur Andersen to Deloitte as a result of the Enron scandal, that was exactly a case where we actually ended up losing a lot of good people because we went through this 9 months of uncertainty where we didn't really know what was happening with the business. People became disillusioned. They lacked engagement. They lacked enthusiasm. It was difficult to be enthusiastic about the future when we didn't know what the future would hold. We didn't know if the team was going to be made redundant. what organization we may or may not get sold to. If we did get sold, would they keep us? Would they also make our role redundant? We really didn't know what was going to happen. So very difficult to keep that level of enthusiasm during those times. And as a result, I did lose a lot of key players within my team, which became very challenging because you're working in a situation where at that time, of course, we had a recruitment freeze on and we couldn't hire any people. So you're diminishing your team and you can't replace them at that moment in time. So it's so important that we do have these people that we're referring to as catalysts within the team that can inspiring people to move forward. And a great example of a catalyst is somebody who can get things done and then some. And from the sports arena, probably Michael Johnson is one of the best examples of this. Michael Johnson, a really famous basketball player, probably the best in the world, has a resume of all of his achievements that just runs to pages and pages. But it's not really his qualifications that are important. It's the way that he shows up when he's in action. How he always seemed to be the player that could come on at a critical moment and just change the game. He had this ability to inspire and motivate and engage and energize everyone else in the team and could literally turn the team around. So he was an example of a winning player that just makes things happen. And that's the law of a catalyst. These winning people on teams that just make things happen. And I think they make things happen because often they make things fun. They make things challenging, but in an exciting type of way. And they galvanize and inspire team members to give of their best. But does that mean that everyone within the team should be a catalyst? Absolutely not. There's basically three types of players, for example, in a team. That when crunch time comes, the catalyst becomes critical. And that could be the salesperson who hits that impossible goal, or in a sporting event, the ball player that makes the biggest play, or just in life, or the parent who gets the child to believe in themselves. So a team can't reach big goals or even break new ground if it doesn't have a catalyst. And these are people who don't want to be that catalyst. When the going gets tough and we end up in high pressure situations, they don't want the responsibility of carrying the team to victory. And clearly, the responsibility shouldn't be given to them. They should be allowed to play in their area of strength. And we've spoken on a number of previous podcasts about the importance of getting the right people in the right role at the right time. There's also some people on your team that might want to step up into this role of catalyst, that think they can carry the team to victory, but actually deep down they know they can't. And often we see this with people whose egos are greater than their talents. And actually these people can be quite dangerous to a team because they believe and they show all the signs of turning the team around, but actually they become quite destructive. And lastly, of course, there are the catalysts, the people who want and should move the group forward. They're the kind of go-to people at a crunch time, and they can actually deliver. And this is the important thing, they can actually deliver. They're able to pull and push and carry the team to new levels when the going gets tough. And I think every team probably needs a catalyst if they want to continue to deliver high performance. Because a team can have a load of amazing talent, but unless it can all get galvanized and pulled together in the same direction, then we don't get the results that potentially could be possible for the team. So what are the characteristics of catalysts? How are you going to identify who these people might potentially be in your team? And they're the kind of people that you can rely on when the going gets tough and you need to up-level the team to a completely different playing field. So John Maxwell identifies these 9 traits. And I wanted to share those with you today because as I think about my friend Dani, I really think she exhibits all of these. So intuitive catalysts really sense things that other people don't. And that could be recognizing a weakness in the way that an opponent's playing, if maybe you're on a sports field. And they're able to turn that disadvantage into an advantage. And I think what's really interesting is that people are most intuitive in areas of their natural strengths. Let's take this into the business world. For a small business, the catalyst might be an entrepreneur that sees an opportunity when nobody else does. And it's this ability to sense the opportunity when nobody else does that creates this benefit for the team. And that's the result. So that's the result of having people on your team that are very intuitive. They see these opportunities that others don't. And then importantly, take action on them to make something happen. The second characteristic of catalysts is that they communicate very effectively. They say things other people don't. So sometimes their role is to inspire and motivate, and other times it is to cajole people forward. But they usually know which team members need a boost and when somebody maybe needs a bit more of a boot. But really their role in communicating is to direct, inspire, and up-level everybody. And we see this with political leaders in the past, how they can rally people together. People like Martin Luther King, Churchill, Roosevelt. They all changed the world by the way that they were able to rally and inspire and catalyze people to come together. So catalysts always communicate very effectively to get their message across and to make the difference. The third attribute of catalysts is passion. They feel things other people don't. They're passionate about what they do and they love to share that with their teammates. And passion can also turn into a little bit of fury when we get so passionate about something. We're so determined to make it happen. And a good dose of passion in the workplace, I think, is really important. And I'd love to share with you a personal story about this for me, because when I was leading that team through the transition, the Enron scandal, the transition from Arthur Andersen to Deloitte, there were a number of times where I was asked to go and present to the board, the senior leadership, about why my division needed to stay, what was important about it. Because in all transparency, I wasn't running an accounting services of the firm in an Arthur Andersen or Deloitte. I run a very specialist hotels and leisure research team. So in that sense, we were immediately non-core to the business. We weren't part of the traditional accountancy services. However, what my team did deliver was incredible opportunities for marketing and PR and press coverage, because we were collecting data from hotels across the world. So we had all the data, and this was in the days before we called big data. We had all the metrics about what was happening. So, for example, when the tsunami hit in Asia, we were able to pull out and look at historic statistics and make some predictions about what was going to happen out there. So I had all this trending data about what was happening in the hotels and the hotel industry. So we were often called upon by journalists to comment on what was happening around the world. So the column inches that my team got in terms of publicity for the firm was very extensive. So on paper, perhaps we didn't look like the most profitable division, and anyone coming in from outside would be like, why should we keep this team of hotel research analysts? It was because of the PR and the kudos, and people all knew about us because we were always in the press. And then we got a lot of work on the back of that. I was called in. We had just actually at this point been acquired by Deloitte, and Deloitte were trying to figure out what they had acquired in terms of my business. And I remember sitting with the senior partner and him asking me exactly these questions. Julia, why should we keep your division? What's important about it? How are you contributing to the bottom line? And I was and still am so passionate about that business. And I remember almost getting to that state of fury. Like, how can you not see this? We provide so much value to the organization. And actually, I was so passionate about the business, I did end up breaking down and crying, because I was so furious. They couldn't see the value. And I was pretty embarrassed, I've got to say, at the time when this happened. And I walked out the guy's office and I was like, I've completely blown this for my team. So I was really upset because obviously my team was relying on me to keep us all in jobs. So there's a lot of pressure. And so I walked away and I was like, oh, that's just not really gone very well. And a few days later, I was actually walking past a gentleman's office and his door was open. And I knocked on it and I said, could I just have a word? And I went in and I said, I really want to apologize for my outburst in your office a couple of days ago. And this is what he said to me. He said, Julia, it is so rare to find people that passionate about their business within this organization. And so I really learned a lesson about passion and how it's okay to be passionate. Passion galvanizes people. I know when I talk about my horse work, people always say to me, you're so passionate about that, Julia. And it comes over, it's infectious, it's in the energy and the way we talk. Passion is something that's a really great attribute to have as a catalyst within an organization. The fourth attribute of catalysts is that they're talented and they're capable of doing things other people can't do because their talent is as strong as their passion. So people rarely become catalysts outside an area of their expertise. And the reason for that is because, firstly, they know the talent it takes to win. And you can't take the team to the next level when you haven't mastered the skills it takes to succeed on a personal level. So you're role modeling what's going to happen. It's very difficult to role model something if you haven't already done it. And I think when other people see how talented and passionate you are about something, then that just helps to give you influence and credibility. And then that helps your level of impacting others become much higher. The fifth attribute of catalysts is this creativity. They think things that other people don't. They think out of the box. They're always looking for fresh, innovative ways to do things. And sometimes that means rewriting the rules. And many of you will know that I'm really passionate about how do we rewrite the rules in business. The current way that we run and lead businesses doesn't work. It's time to reinvent business and come up with new models of leadership and teamwork and how to work collectively together. And I believe that those examples exist in nature, which is why I always link my work back to nature, because nature understands the power of interdependence and interconnectedness and how everything impacts everything else. The sixth attribute of catalysts is that they're initiating. They get things done that others can't. They delight in making things happen. And so by getting things done, they move the team to another level. And there's plenty of people out there that I've seen have passion and talent, but they can't actually get things done. These are all great ideas in their head, but actually they lack that ability to execute. And I think great catalysts, just like my friend Dani, actually execute. Dani had an amazing vision and talent for how she was going to transform this land into an amazing community space that people could come to, that could support people. But she just didn't talk about it. She actually got on and did it. She's built tiny houses. She's built all the stables. She's built the arenas. They've got solar power in there. Everything is sustainable. Dani didn't just think about it. She actually did it. She took action. And that's an example of a great catalyst actually taking action. The seventh attribute of catalysts is they carry things others do not carry. So they actually take, as we've talked about with Dani, responsibility for their action. They know what needs to happen and they graft to make it happen. And perhaps a lovely analogy to just think about this is sometimes the consultancy world, a world I'm very familiar with that I've come through, where consultants can go into organizations and businesses and make suggestions for what should happen. And then maybe the business owner says, then go ahead and execute. And the consultant goes, oh, we don't actually do what we recommend. So catalysts actually do what they recommend. They get on, they take action. And the eighth attribute of catalysts is that they're very generous. They take responsibility to get things done and follow through. And they're prepared to use their resources for the betterment of the team, whether that means giving time, spending money, or sacrificing personal gain. So I think that this is really important, this concept of generosity, that the givers get philosophy, that we need to be generous with our time, with our resources, with our energy. But actually, when we're very generous with that, it does come back. It's the law of reciprocity that exists. What we give out, we get back. Great catalysts are very generous. And the final attribute is influence. Catalysts are able to lead their teammates in ways that others can't. Teammates follow catalysts when they won't respond to anyone else. So in the case of a highly talented team member who's not especially gifted in leadership, they might be an effective catalyst in their area of expertise. But people with natural leadership ability will have influence far beyond their own team. Actually, I see this all the time in business. People who have the ability to influence, not just in their direct line of reports, but throughout the organization, they can create this ripple effect. And in fact, influence is one of the things that increasingly a number of my coaching clients are asking me for help with, because we currently work in these really complex matrix environments where often, in order to get things done, you have to influence people in other departments, other teams, other divisions to get things to happen for you. So this ability to influence is really important. And I think influence is such a big topic that I'm going to devote a whole episode to strategies and tactics to help you influence within the workplace. Catalysts, super important that we find them. Find the people who are catalysts on our team. Who are those people that you are going to rely on when the going gets tough? There may well be people within your team you just haven't even recognized this within. I'd really invite you to look back at our 9 attributes of these catalysts. Quick reminder, they are intuitive, they're communicative, they're passionate, they're talented, they're creative, they initiate change, they're responsible, they are generous, and they are influential. Who are those people within your team, and how can you help develop them as well? And perhaps some of the ways that I might just throw out for ways that you can help develop people that you identify a catalyst within your team is perhaps help them find a mentor. They get better by being with somebody else and learning from other people. Find someone who makes things happen to help them along the way. Maybe think about a personal development plan for them. How can they help develop their talents and skills? Because as we said, you can't take the team to a high level if you haven't got there yourself. And finally, encourage these people to get outside of their comfort zone. People don't know what they're capable of until they step outside of their comfort zone and try something else. And often people surprise themselves by what is possible. And I know I've been working with quite a few young people recently, and the biggest reward is to see somebody's potential when they can't see it themselves and give them those opportunities to step outside of their comfort zone, try something else. And that can give them a level of satisfaction and value that they didn't even know existed. In conclusion, please go and try and find the catalysts within your team. I'd love to hear who they are, and find those people, those teammates who can help steer your ship to the next level, who can help galvanize the team when the going gets tough. And they're those people that take and create the inspiration within the team, because winning teams have players who make things happen, and catalysts get it done and then some. As I said, Dani, my friend Dani, is an example of a great catalyst within her business. Who are they within your team? Once again, thank you for listening to this edition of Impactful Teamwork. I hope you found discovering all about catalysts and how they can completely catalyze and change your team really helpful and useful. As always, I'd love to hear any thoughts that you have about teamwork, what's working well in your team. And if you'd love to come on the show and share your thoughts with us, you're always welcome to do so. So once again, have an amazing week, and I'll catch you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?